Gbolt here. I'm excited to bring you my 2018 AT through hike gear list. I've watched many of these gear list videos in the past and appreciated everybody's contributions and ideas, and being able to look at the gear they had has tremendously helped me to refine and improve upon the gear that I've taken on backpacking trips since a very young age. It's amazing with today's technology and today's techniques, backpacking has come a long way. And what I used to carry in a 7-pound external frame pack, normally about 55 pounds to 60 pounds, I've got down to below 20 pounds base weight. I do not think I'm going to make too many adjustments to this. I have done a lot of shakedown hikes the last year, getting ready for this video. And I think I'm now to the point where I'm pretty set on what I'm going to take. So here we go. We'll start with the big three: pack, shelter, and sleeping bag insulation. We'll start out with the first item of the big three, the pack, which is usually the last item you buy, and it was the last item I bought. I honestly thought I'd be buying this, using it for prep hikes, and then trading it in for a Z-Pax Cuban fiber. You can't beat the weight of the Cuban fiber. But then I started to question the durability, especially of the original. Even though they've beefed up the Cuban fiber material, the cost is still high. I really didn't see the advantage of the Cuban fiber ones over the ULA Ohm 2.0 for weight and cost. This is a great pack, and I've got nothing but great things to say about it. And so I decided to forego the cost of the more expensive Z-Packs and stick with the ULA Ohm. Of course, inside I've got the trash compactor bag to line it. I do use an orange Dutch wear pack cover. Chose orange for safety during the hunting season, and also because this material, while water resistant, will pick up some water, and I figure the water weight that it gains and carrying that water weight, I'd just as soon go with the pack cover. On the outside, I've got an Accurite thermometer, but the more I think about it and the more I discuss and see others comment on my gear list, I decided that maybe that isn't going to go on the trip with me, possibly unnecessary weight. However, I'm old school, so I'm not going to give up the compass and the whistle. Those are essential items, and I'm still debating on whether I take the extremely lightweight flint steel. In front, of course, I've got my DIY hydration system. Smart water bottle bladder is what I call it. I don't like the bladder in a pack, but I do like drinking through a tube. This way I can see and I can fill it outside the pack without having to fight the inside of the pack. I did another video on that, so you can check that out if you'd like. Of course, hand sanitizer on it, and then a REI pack towel that snaps in here and unsnaps for sweat, for trail use, on top of the bandanas that I carry for the cookware set, and also for the occasional place that may not have a shower towel, or if I'm out and decide to take a swim. This is excellent during the summer. I have used it in showers before. It's small, but it gets the job done. It absorbs a lot. The pack carries extremely well. I love the hip pockets on the pack. I am going to probably take a Big Carl pack hanger. Some say it's not necessary. You just hang your pack from the inside of the hammock. This also serves as a part of my tarp system for pulling the side out on the sides of the tarp and staking to the ground. It also can serve as a clothesline. So right now it's going. Overall, I'm quite pleased with my pack choice, the ULA Ohm 2.0. Next is my shelter. I'm a hammock guy. Warbonic Blackbird 11-foot hammock, the old school one. Got red for head, gray for tail. Compresses nice, packs nice, very comfortable night's sleep. It's a 1.1 double layer, so I can throw a pad in it should I need to. I'm not planning on using a pad anymore because I have a underquilt, but I do store clothing in there, and I do like the double layer for bug protection. In my hammock, I also carry a Sea to Summit Aeros pillow. It stays full time in here. It's easier to operate it that way. I can blow it up and let air out and maintain it inside the hammock. And then I've got a system rigged up to where I can adjust it in the hammock with a slide Zing-It line to make it work in the hammock. You have no way to keep the pillow in place in a hammock. It slides down your back, falls out of the hammock. So I came up with a system to hook it and maintain it and adjust it inside the hammock so my Sea to Summit stays full time in the hammock. The suspension is Dutch wear Polydyneema straps with beetle buckles. They hang on the outside of the pack. They're in these anti-gravity gear mesh sacks that weigh very little, but this allows them to dry on the outside of the pack, and it allows me to get away with saving space in the mesh outer pocket of my pack. My shelter tarp is a Hammock Gear Palace Cuban fiber tarp. This is where most of my money went, but it's extremely lightweight. I often use a Cuban fiber stuff sack for this, but on the suggestion of many, I've gotten rid of the stuff sack. It saved me, it went from 0.55 to 0.15 ounces. So you're talking points, but again, ounces to pounds. I found that this technique works really well, and it allows me to stuff this in the side pocket of the Ohm backpack, and it'll ride there and it'll dry there. Great tarp, great system. The tarp comes with doors, so I can be fully enclosed. I also did a video showing how I can take this to the ground on top of a bald, which is why I use the Cuban fiber sack for carrying my tent stakes. And I have 10 tent stakes. 4 come with guy outlines. 2 are for setting it up on ground mode for each peak. And then I've got 4 shepherd hook stakes that are titanium, extremely lightweight. These help with the door guy outs and also side guy outs if necessary. And so I think that system works. It may be 2 ground stakes over, but oftentimes I use a ground stake when I don't feel like looking for a stick in the woods. I'll use a ground stake for hanging my food bag. I found a stake is pretty easy to slide in and slide over a marlin spike. That's my guy out system. Included in my shelter system is an REI multi-purpose rain kilt, because this kilt serves as a nice ground cloth for door entry and for storing stuff underneath the tarp. It also serves as an underquilt protector for my hammock system to keep moisture off my bottom insulation layer. Awesome piece of equipment. Next comes my sleeping insulation. I have a Hammock Gear 20 degree quilt. It's the Hammock Gear Burrow. Love this thing. It really does the job. I also am taking an underground quilt 50 degree flight jacket with non-sewn foot box. Instead it snaps. A lot of people say, are you going to ship this? But I'm carrying it the whole way. This is 10.35 ounces. It's the lightest 50 degree top quilt I could find, and it serves as an underquilt as well, so I can add it for bottom insulation. I can wear it in camp over my down jacket for added insulation, and it is lighter weight than any of the silk liners or the Thermarest extreme liners that a lot of people carry with their sleeping bag. So if I count my HG 20 degree Burrow as my sleeping bag, then this would be my liner for it, and it's not increasing my weight as much as a liner. Most of the liners are 14 to 16 ounces, just under a pound. This is 10.35 ounces. I can't beat that insulation. Now, if I find by the time I get to Fontana that I'm really not using it and don't need it, I may bounce it ahead and save some weight, but right now I think it's going to go the whole way. In a hammock system, you have to have some type of hammock insulation. Just like in a tent you have to have your ground insulation. For a hammock, I've got two choices. I can go with the double layer. I can go with the typical Thermarest pad. Or I much prefer the Warbonic Yeti 20-degree underquilt with nice touch hangers. Makes it easy. Encloses my body extremely well. And this has kept me warm. It's 3/4, so it really doesn't help from the lower legs and feet, but this is great insulation. For feet insulation, again, I can multi-purpose. The Thermarest sit pad, this has gotten great reviews by many others. I have used it for my feet inside the hammock. I love it for my feet, so I do use it nightly. Sit on it during the daytime. Great piece of gear. This will definitely go all the way. This Thermarest is the one I'm questioning. I don't know if I'm going to start out with the trail and then carry it through the Smokies when I have to possibly go to shelters. I don't know if I'm going to ship it to Fontana and pick it up just for the Smokies and send it back home, and we'll wait and see. It does ride on top, but it is 14 ounces. That's almost a pound just right here. So my tendency is leaning towards shipping it for the Smokies and then getting rid of it. But like I said, if I go to the ground at the top of a bald, or if I go to the ground in Damascus for trail days with the tarp, I have no ground insulation. I can do some stuff with the padding, just small piece of padding in the back of the pad. The foot pad from Thermarest, I could make a go of it, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and I really do want to be comfortable at my age. So, interesting. Love to hear your comments on it. That's the big three. I thought I would film the cook system in the kitchen because my wife says I never spend any time in here, so she doesn't know how I'm going to survive on the trail. Little does she know that I do know how to boil water, and that's the basis of my cook system. Starting off with the food bag, I've got the Z-Packs Blast food bag, one of the original ones. I did make the modification that Hurley Riser talks about to spread out the hang on the bag to make it hang more evenly, a little bit easier. I also carry a second bag for lunch snacks that will ride on the hip belt of the pack for daytime use. I also have the rucksack and 50 feet of lash-it rope, thin, slick to go over trees. Then I also have my, what I call my scents bag that has all the smelling objects in it, toothpaste, toothbrush, and sunscreen. So that stays with the food bag. Really enjoy the Z-Packs Blast food pouch. Next is the cook system. I use a Toke 750 milliliter pot with bail handle. It comes in the orange pouch. I keep the orange pouch even though it's a slight weight penalty because it makes it nice for packing it in the pocket of the pack. On top, I store a Sea to Summit X mug that doubles as a bowl, mainly for coffee in the morning because I like to sip coffee while I'm eating oatmeal. So I found that this little cup does a great many things for me, and it's worth the weight penalty. The Toke's titanium pot, I like the lid on it, although it doesn't sit as good as I'd like it to. It is a little wobbly. I like the fact that you can prop this up and use something to lift it off, and it stays up so that you don't have a problem, and then it folds down if necessary. Great little lid. The pot itself has good collapsible handles, titanium so it's lightweight. It has the handle so I can cook over a fire should I run out of canister fuel or just to take advantage of a fire and save fuel. Everything I need I store inside the Toke's titanium pot in a bandana because I don't like the rattle. A lot of people say save weight, but this is obnoxious in a pocket. I save that noise by storing it in a bandana and buffering the whole sound system. I do use canister fuel Bic lighter. I have this for the cook pot. And then I use a micro rocket stove on top of the canister fuel. I've had this and I've looked at the BSR, but there's no reason to replace this. Never had any problems with it. It's my plan to use on the trail. Again, this all stores in the pouch very easily with the lighter on bottom. Then the canister. And then I put it into the pot. I fold two corners over to protect the stove. That way I don't need a stove case. Then I fold the other two corners and sort of wrap it. Lid goes on top. Handles collapse. Into the pouch. Close off the pouch. And it stays quiet. I use a DIY pouch to cook in. You can see lots of videos on these. This weighs 2.0 ounces, so there is a slight penalty, but works extremely well. I use a Optimus spoon, long-handled, to reach into the deep Mountain House bags. I like the texture and feel of the spoon. That's the main reason I went with the Optimus. I don't like the titanium feel. This is polished, feels good on the tongue. I usually store it in the bag, Velcro down. I also include a knife into my cook set, small Gerber, so it's not all that heavy. There is my cook system. Now for the water filtration and hydration system that I plan to use on the trail. I'm very old school. I remember when we used to drop iodine tablets into a canteen, then you had to swish it around and wait for it to dissolve, and then you had to make sure you got some on the mouthpiece. Otherwise, you still ended up with giardia. Many trips when I was young, I still ended up with the runs a couple of days after hiking. It just seemed to be part of the gig. The iodine was horrible tasting. I can remember putting in Tang, the powder drink of astronauts, into the canteen to try and soften the taste of that iodine. So I was very happy when I purchased my first Sawyer Squeeze filtration system. Usually when I come out of town, I'll pack a Gatorade bottle for that first day's hike. After that, I really don't use electrolytes beyond the first day, but it is kind of nice because then I have this as a container for water for camp and everything else. Of course, I use a smart water bottle hydration system, what I call the smart water bottle bladder, on my strap of my pack, and then it's got the mouthpiece. I did a video DIY on this, and other people are also catching on to this and doing this. My actual water filter I carry in a day pack. It's kind of nice to throw on to get down to some of the lower water holes that people talk about. It also serves as a day pack, but this is where I keep all my hydration supplies. The system has worked out extremely well. Inside I've got an ever new dirty water bladder that fits the Sawyer Squeeze. I do have this one hooked up for gravity feed as well as the ability to squeeze it. I do not use a cut up bottom of water bottle as a scoop. Instead, I took the Sawyer Squeeze bag, and these are notorious for ripping out anyway, so I took the smallest one and cut off the end, and I've always used this as a water gathering or scooping device to be able to fill up the dirty water bag. Because it is a possibility of a gravity feed system, I do carry some tubing so that I can use either method, squeeze or gravity filled. I've got the tornado tube that will connect the Sawyer Squeeze that I keep in a bag during the winter because it goes into my pocket. I bought this Sawyer Squeeze when it was $55 very early on. Thought I had made a mistake when the Mini came out, but was glad to see when people started saying, no, hang on to these, the water flow is better. And so I've always hung on to it and used it. The tornado tube goes on the end, and then it fits into the smart water bottle system, again for gravity or squeeze filtration system. Now for my carried clothing. I will do a separate video on what I actually hike in, my layering system, especially winter. However, for this video, I thought I would do a quick section on the clothing that is packed away. So here we go. I carry most of my camp clothing in a Z-Packs medium pillow sack. It will double as a pillow. As you can see, you flip it inside out. However, I much prefer the Sea to Summit pillow in my hammock, so that's the one I stick with. And this is a backup one for shelter and possibly going to the ground. For sleep, I have a mid-layer Patagonia Capilene 2 top and bottom to sleep in. And then I also use a balaclava because in a hammock, heat retention is a big deal. And that comes with the face mask, and I found it's comfortable. And thus, it also doubles for on the trail should I get below 20 and get extremely cold weather coming through. Usually on the trail, I use a buff and a beanie. Those tend to get wet during the day, so I want something dry at night. And this seems to work for me. Of course, I carry a pair of sleep socks. In that sack, I also carry a second pair of hiking clothes. I use a pair of Smart Dew running tights and a pair of shorts over them. These are ULAA, lightest weight ones I could find. Of course, I cut out the inner liner, but I like these because they do have a pocket. Also carry an extra pair of Darn Tough socks to rotate in and out, extra bandana, camp shoes. Again, I use the Crocs. This is extremely nice because they have the back loop to hook on in case you're doing a water crossing, but then they fold up in case you're just slipping them on in the middle of the night for a midnight rendezvous. Again, they hang by these on the back of the pack, so that's extremely helpful. Part of my clothing system that usually is carried and worn off and on as needed is a long sleeve Patagonia midweight thermal 3/4 zip hoodie. After listening to Early Riser, also Bigfoot, talk about the usefulness of this layer, and I agree with them. I use it ranging from 10 degrees up to 40 degrees. Great piece of gear. I strongly encourage everyone to look at it. Very important piece to my layering system. For rain, I go with the Marmot pre-sipped rain jacket. I wear this and I practice with this and know what it can and can't do. This material, you often sweat inside, so I do use it in extremely cold weather when it's under 25 degrees. It has the pit zips that are so important to vent. I find that it is a great piece of both winter and rain wear. I plan on starting out with these Bike ultralight rain pants. They also double as laundry pants, wind pants. They're just nylon. They zip at the boot. They hold in heat. They resist water extremely well. I've had them for years. Then I also plan on carrying the rain kilt because I may end up sending these home once we get to warmer weather, but I plan on carrying this the whole way. This serves as an underground quilt protector. It also serves as a ground cloth, multi-use item. This rain kilt is quickly becoming, again, a favorite item along with the midweight thermal hoodie. Probably my favorite item is the Patagonia Houdini wind shirt. I usually use it as a wind shirt. I wear this practically every single day. I spend a great deal of time in this. It fits in its own pocket. It's 3.4 ounces. It's also got a wind hood that cinches on it. It's just an awesome piece of gear. Like I said, something you use daily. It is probably my favorite piece of gear. For my camp insulation and insulation layer, I use a Mount Bell UL no hood ultralight jacket. For the hood, I carry a BlackRock down beanie. I want the hat separate, again because of being a hammocker. I sometimes use this inside my sleepwear as part of my sleep system, so it is a multi-use item. This allows me more versatility. To hike in, I found these wristies with a little thumb hole. They slide onto your wrist and they maintain the temperature of the blood passing through your wrist. These I use almost on a daily basis in the winter time. Anytime it's under 35 degrees, those are on my wrist and they're part of keeping me warm. Then I have a hiking beanie. This oftentimes does get wet. It dries out fairly quickly. For camp and hiking, when I do need hand covering, I use these DIY mittens. I had a pair of glove liners. They didn't work. They didn't keep my hands warm. So I've replaced with these DIY mittens and cut the gloves out totally. These are excellent. They're wool, so they dry quickly. If they get wet, they still hold in heat in the snow. They're from my Civil War reenactment days, and they are a great item. All of my winter items stuff into one stuff sack for winter time that I'll be able to ship and bounce ahead or keep in the bottom of the pack. So this is my packed clothing system. Now the small items. I did another video on this, so please watch that one to see what's individually in each one of these containers. However, for the long version, I'm simply going to run through them to give you the weights. Also, I did some modifications and I'll discuss those from the original video that you can go to and watch. First stuff sack is simply bug net and some insect repellent for whenever that may become necessary on the trail. Next is my toiletry kit, deuce of spades. I am going to make one modification, and that is that I'm going to take the Dr. Bronner's soap that is in a 2-ounce container and probably put it into some type of small eye drop container and cut the amount down. Here's where I made the biggest change. I combined a first aid kit and an emergency ditty sack into one sack. That will probably save me 2.5 ounces. Most of that was the Mylar emergency survival blanket. I keep going back and forth on this because this can go over the top of the hammock and create some great insulation. It can also serve as a ground cloth. So I'm still debating on this. Again, that's where you guys come in. I'd love to hear some input on whether that's necessary or not. Right now I'm leaning to leave it home and save the weight. My emergency ditty first aid bag simply combined everything. I did drop some items from the emergency list. I dropped matches and instead will carry a second small mini Bic lighter in here. My electronics sack has a 2-input charger, cordage, batteries, earplugs, and my Anchor 10 milliamp battery charger, and that is pretty well set. My headlamp is the Petzl headlamp. Purchased this years ago and haven't found a reason to change away from it. Has a old style flip up red lens cap that works excellent, fairly lightweight. No need to change. This is my wallet, Z-Pack zip pouch, carries my earbuds, credit card, driver's license, and some money. And I also like it because it will carry change as well. And it zips up, fairly waterproof, can go in either my pocket or into the pack itself. Of course, my iPhone, which carries the Gut Hook app. I will be carrying AWOL's guide as well, and that's been pre-ordered and is on its way, so can't be included yet. This is what I'm taking on my 2018 through hike attempt. I have confidence in this, appreciate everyone's input. into making this a successful journey. Hopefully you found something useful out of it. We all have our own style and our own techniques, always open to suggestions.